Hello, everyone.
Hi,
I'm Vicki.
I'm Doug.
Together, we are KittenStitcher. Welcome to our channel. This is our episode number 4.
Episode 4, A New Hope for this stitching year.
Huh?
Because Star Wars.
Oh. Okay. Star Wars. That's where we're going today. Today we're going to talk about a bunch of different things, and if you've watched any of my previous episodes, you'll know that Doug is new today, and I hope he's going to be with us in every episode in the future because he's a stitcher. Want to give a shout out. I actually want to thank Suzy Reno for her shout out. She mentioned our channel. I had watched an episode of hers where she had a guest host. She had a host named Mavis Oscarson. Mavis is a crocheter. Now, I've crocheted for like 40 years too. And while Mavis and I have completely different styles, one might even say diametrically opposed styles, it just so happened that when we were going through a box, about a week after seeing that episode, Doug called me into the dining room and said, "Hey, Vicki, come see this." I'm like, "I'm sore. My muscles are pulled. I'm the queen of the world. Bring it to me." He said, "No, really, you have to get up and walk in here." I said, "Okay." So I walked in there, and he started flipping these things at me, and I started laughing. And I said, "That's for Mavis." And he said, yes, that's for Mavis." And so we contacted Suzy to see if she would be kind enough to forward them to Mavis, and she was a doll. She said yes, and so we were able to send it to her. And I actually got a really nice Christmas card, actually a thank you note on a Christmas card, so it's a 2-in-1. I mean, Mavis thinks of everything. And while normally I wouldn't read a note, I really want to read this to you because it's just so sweet. And it's so Mavis. Let's see, it says, "Dear Vicki, I wanted to write to thank you for thinking of me with all of those lovely crochet patterns books you sent to Suzy Reno. Holy smokes." I can't do her accent, but you know, she's from Minnesota. Just go with it, okay? "I will for sure make good use of them there patterns. They are just my style, and hopefully Otto will be more careful around these ones. With love, Mavis." Now, if you haven't seen the episode with Mavis, I'm going to link it below because her husband, Oscar...
They're sweet young people. Sweet people.
Well, sweet people, they are. But he wasn't too careful when he was in the Bippy. And you'll have to watch the episode to understand the rest of that. But anyways, thank you, Suzy. Hey, you know what? We can get back and forth shouting each other out for the same thing. What do you think? Are you up for it? I don't know. Anyway, and then, you know, don't just watch the Mavis one. Watch Suzy Reno. She's so good. Okay. Since I mentioned Doug, I've got my notes. Since we mentioned that Doug is new with us today, I'm gonna ask him some questions so you can learn a little bit more about him. So, okay, Doug, since I know the answers to these, I wrote the questions. Okay, I kind of know the answers. When did you first start stitching?
Over 20 years ago, in the mid to late 1990s, you showed me.
I showed you. You mean I taught you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's true. I taught a lot of people back then. I taught my late son and my 2 daughters. When they bring their friends over, I'd teach them too. When I'd go on business trips, I'd have little tiny kits in my pocket, and if somebody had any interest in what I was doing, I'd say, "Hey," and I'd pull it out. The Serendipity Designs kits were great, although that was actually more in the 2000s. Anyways, I still keep some kits handy. So if you happen to wander in my house and you don't cross-stitch, you may be cross-stitching by the time you leave. Okay, Doug. What Oh, do you have any favorite?
Can't read your writing again.
My writing is atrocious. I can't read it at all. So, you know, I'll go, hey, man, what did I write? And I'll say, hey, Doug, what did I write? And he's like, you expect me to read that? I don't know when it got so bad. Maybe when I broke my hand for the 3rd time. Maybe. Okay, anyway.
Forever.
And then I don't space well, and it's just nasty, and I hold my pen wrong, and it's all sorts of stuff. More about me than about you. Stop. Okay. Do you have any favorite subjects or designers in cross-stitch?
No real favorite designers. I tend to like. I've done a bunch of. I've done some birds and some cats and some mice and various other things.
You like
doing some of my own stuff.
You like nautical things too, don't you?
Yeah, some nautical stuff, lighthouses, and just different things. I don't have any one specific. I have dreams, but you know, I can show
And
those
he has
later.
stash.
Well, yeah,
Well,
of course.
Aren't you going to say?
Yeah, we have stash.
We have stash,
What
okay.
what's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine. What's mine is yours, whatever.
Sure, as long as you give me your salary. Okay. This one's easy. I can actually read this one. Do you have any other hobbies, Dick?
Yeah, Lego. We
Lots
have
of
a
Lego.
variety of them around here. Like right over there, we have the big Disney castle that we did for the kids recently. Woodworking. I want to try some dyeing and some other stuff as well.
You do coloring.
Coloring, yep.
You've crocheted.
Yep, used to make hats. I used to knit some.
Yeah, I hated making hats. I couldn't do it well, so I would do the scarves and he would do the hats.
Yeah, I used to have a knit.
Yeah, you had that knitting machine.
I had a knitting machine. Used to made a bunch of hats one year.
Yeah, when the troops went into Afghanistan, there was a call out to different crocheters and knitters to provide
Skull caps.
skull caps that were supposed to be wool to keep them warm, but they wanted them specifically to be the type of wool that wouldn't shrink. So he made a whole big bunch of them, and then I got to seam them all, and that was fun. I think I seamed something like 89 of them or 90. It was some amount. It was kind of, he would go zip 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 zip, here, give it. Anyway, okay. Do you have any favorite books or authors or genres?
I tend to read science fiction, various types, various authors. You know, everything from, you know, when I started years ago it was Asimov, and now it's more modern stuff. Of all sorts, and I sometimes read your mystery novels.
Yeah, he has a
The ones that
personal
you sort
reader.
out.
Yeah. I do a lot of reading, and, you know, that one's no good, but this one's really good. So right now you're reading my favorite series, I think.
Yeah.
The Country Club Murders by Julie Mulhern.
Mm-hmm.
But what is that book you're reading right now, the science fiction one?
I read Salvation recently by
That's Peter Hamilton, right?
Peter Hamilton, and I'm reading another one called Constitution.
Do you remember the author's name?
No, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's the first of a series, a well-known series.
Yeah, I do a lot of reading because I review books on my blog, and I get access to advanced reader copies from publishers because I do a lot of reviewing on my blog. So I've read a couple recently that were new. The latest Flavia de Luce book by, I think his name is Alan Bradley. But I'm actually doing a kind of throwback to a very old book. I'm reading a book by Mary Stewart called The Ivy Tree. And this is probably like the 5th time I've read that book. And this is the first time I've read it and said, you know, a lot of these concepts are a little outdated, but, you know, it's still a good book.
And I recently finished the most recent Dragon Rider Pern book from Anne McCaffrey's daughter.
Yeah, I read that too. So, yeah. That was one that I got in a pre-release form, so it was kind of fun to be able to read it together and talk about it. Let's see. Okay. Oh, let's show our whips, Doug. Why don't you show your whip? Go grab your. Oh, okay. It's not your project bag.
Well, here's my project bag.
Well, you'll do that later. Okay.
That's my project bag.
That's your project bag for smalls, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my project bag for smalls.
And maybe next time he'll bring out his large project bag.
Everyone's seen this. This is what got me started again. You know, it's like only about 1 million people are doing it at the moment. And there's sales and stuff.
You saw it when Priscilla and Chelsea. You're missing something. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can't give you
I got
that
a piece of paper.
Okay, I can't give you the one that's. Oh, the pattern. I'll use this one. Is that a pattern?
No.
Okay, I may steal that. Okay.
So, it's on Lugana that I poured coffee and tea over it. You know, one of my little scraps.
So you coffee tea dyed it, and then we poured the espresso in it, right?
Yeah, but it's coffee tea dyed. Following Priscilla and Chelsea's,
Recommendation.
their post.
Was that's
the only thing I'm actually stitching at the moment. I have other
Okay,
stuff,
we'll talk
old
about
stuff.
other things later. Well, I'm still working on this one, but I think an end is in sight. I mean, if you've seen my previous episodes, you'll know that, I have some health problems. And then on top of that, I got shingles last October, and I've been having some continuing nerve pain issues with it. And one of the things is that it causes my muscles to go into spasm. It was bad enough when it was on this side, but apparently it started. Nerves on this side are talking to this side. So I'm going into spasm all over my chest and abdomen. But I am figuring out ways to stitch. I was doing one thread and my muscles would tighten up, and I figured out which one it was. So then I discovered that if I stretch this way, really a couple of times in between threads, I can add threads on. And so I'm currently up to 3 threads twice a day. So let's see. Can they see this or no? Give me that. You gotta get one of those foam cord things that we have so many
Over
of them.
there.
Yeah, I know we have. Okay, so Copy Quaker by Heartstring Samplery, Beth Twist. And I've changed the colors up, although I'm doing a DMC conversion. What?
Let me hold it.
Oh, well, if you could. I'm on this motif right here, and then I've got a big one here, and then there's something here that I think I'm going to change. So I'm hoping I'm going to finish this month. I started in October. I really should have finished it in October, but I'm glad to be finishing. Let's see. The other whip I have is an older one, and it's from the Assembler. I had a whole bunch of Assembler kits at one time, and last year I just kind of had to face facts and figure I wasn't going to be able to do them all in this lifetime, and that they were part of the stuff that we gave to assisted living. Anyway, this is the one I kept. It's the Caroline Napier 1800. It's a really small one. And that's where I am. I started a long time ago. And when I pulled it out recently to work on it, I noticed that I'd gone totally wrong with the black. And I wasn't sure how generous the designer was in kitting this. So I decided to buy a skein of Belsois in black and just rip it out and start over again. It's been so many years that it couldn't possibly be the same color. But it's on 35 count dyed linen, whatever that is. I think that's our whips. Okay, Hall.
Okay. Let me give you my opinion about Hall.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
Doug will give us his opinion about Hall.
My opinion about Hall is once it enters the door of the house, it's no longer Hall. It's stash. But this is what entered the house most recently for me.
Can you explain why you say that?
Because
people are talking
because
about...
everyone's talking about stitching from stash. So anything that's in the house is stash. And we have a lot of that. So this is the most recent thing that entered the house. Again, it's something that a lot of people were doing, and but it looked interesting to me. It's something that I haven't.
What's it called?
Peace on Earth by Cottage Garden. I haven't decided what fabric. I'm thinking I'm going to dye my own fabric. I have some scraps over here.
Yeah, he'll show it later. He that was a digital download.
Yeah.
And that's new to us to do digital download. He did one. I did. I don't have that one out, so we won't talk about it. But it's something we've been thinking about doing with some of my designs, since I'm not really able to do paper patterns anymore because of my lung issue. The chemicals in the toner and the paper fibers and all that stuff just isn't something I can have around me. So the only way I could possibly sell them would be, or make them available, I should say, is in digital download. Mm-hmm. Huffman's been really nice to me and kept my account open, but it's just not something I'm going to be able to do unless they start doing digital downloads.
Yeah. A couple of decades ago, we suggested that they do on-demand printing to them, but that never happened.
Yeah, we suggested that because, well, we'll talk about our internet store in a little bit, but we really wanted our local needlework shops to flourish. And the problem that people had is they would go into the shops and they wouldn't have the charts. So they'd leave and they'd go buy from the internet. So, I mean, it was nice for us, but...
Or they'd order and not get it for 2-3 weeks. Or
more months, 2 or 3 months, because shops would wait until they had enough to get a free shipment. And that could be a wait. Okay. Stash.
Okay.
Let's stop for a second.
Okay.
By the way, my idea of haul is something that I bought recently. Now, that's different because most of my stash is from 2005 and earlier. So recently is subjective for me. It could be something from the last year or more. Anyway, okay.
You want to talk about our stash?
Well, we'll just say we have a lot of stash. A lot of stash.
More than we will ever finish in our lifetimes 3 times over.
And that's after we gave away at least 50% of it last year.
And
Probably more than 50% of the kids.
Yeah.
But, okay, but we did keep some of our favorites, and Doug will show you a couple. I mean, we could show you our stash for a millennial.
yeah.
Millennium.
Yeah.
That's a millennial's different. I have one of those in my family too.
Okay. So this one's from 1993, Ross Original. This one I might actually start pretty soon. I'm thinking about dyeing some light blue fabric, and putting them on there somehow.
I'm guessing this is out of print, and most of the things we'll show you
are probably out of print.
are probably out of print.
But yeah, this is 1993. I doubt it has existed for a long time. And he did it on 14 count 8 according to the directions, but I'm not sure I'm going to stitch it on. I think I tend to like Lugana's more even weave. And then this one, again, I've been thinking about doing it for about 20 years. But I need to get on my big boy panties first. This is
Big boy drawers.
big board drawers. This is Teresa Wensler's Peaceable Kingdom. Okay? And there's the picture. This is the one that Leisure Arts printed. When Leisure Arts stopped,
Oh yeah, that's a lot better.
Yeah, this is the one that Leisure Arts printed. When Leisure Arts stopped producing it, when we had the store, we bought the last of the stock and sold it for quite some time after it was gone. To give you an idea why I haven't started it, okay, this is page 1 of the floss list. And on the back, this is page 2.
Well, that's
of the
nicely
floss
upside
list.
down, but it's still.
That's not upside down. That's right side up.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay, there's only 2 rows of colors listed on this page. On the first one is 3 rows of colors.
No, that's not even all full coverage.
And a lot of the, there's a few spots on here that aren't covered. Like 200 or 300 X's, 2 10 by 10 grids. The rest is almost full coverage, and a lot of it is like 2 threads per symbol. So
you mean 2 different threads per symbol?
2 different threads per symbol, or a thread and a acrylic per symbol, or something. It's all blended, and probably I don't know. It'll certainly be the one that would take me another 20 years to finish if I ever start it.
Dream big. I didn't show you
Dream
my.
big or go home.
We talked about haul, but I didn't show you my haul. So let me show you my haul real quick. You've all seen this, but I hadn't seen it, so it's brand new. Blessed Be by Brenda Gervais with Thy Needle, I think, right? Yep. With Thy Needle and Thread. And I thought it was really pretty. And as I said, I had never seen anything like that. Same thing is true of this. You've probably all seen this, but I haven't. This is called Michael's Prayer. And it's by Silver Creek Samplers. It's a very moving prayer by Michael Judge, who was a Franciscan friar and Catholic priest who passed away on 9/11. And it's very touching and meaningful to me as well right now. Okay, let me show you my stash. Now, I've been looking at a lot of the Blackbird samplers, Blackbird designs, and saying, gee, I got a few when they first came out, and I thought I would have forever to buy more. I wanted to stitch those and buy more, and turns out that wasn't the case. A lot of those things went out of print, and went out of print quickly too. But there was one in particular I had looked at and gone, oh gee, I wish I had bought that, and it turns out that I did. And this is called America, or as
America.
Pretty Southern would say, America. And I did have it. It's stitched on 10 count canvas. Now, I have some of that old Betsy Ross 10 count, but I don't think I'm going to stitch it on the 10 count because I'm just not going to do that. And so you see, all my things are pretty old. What's the copyright date on that? Is there a copyright date on that? Anyway, I'll go on to the next one. This is called Moo by Fancy That. Now, Fancy That, I think, was way ahead of their time. They were doing very primitive designs, and I think you can see if you look at this that their type of designing was probably an inspiration to many of the designers today. And at the time, they were really unusual. And when I say at the time, this was from 1994. So I think it's still great today. I mean, there's this huge cow, this tiny little barn, which you could say, okay, man, it's way back in the distance. But what I love is there's this tiny, tiny, tiny little tractor. Okay, and the words say cow, moo, farm, dairy, rancher, cattle. So, anyway, I think that should be fun. I want to do that cow. Okay, I think that's that. What I'm going to show you, since, it's going to be hard for me to do many finishes now, I'll show you some of my previous finishes, because I have a few of those. Although my first 20 years of stitching were all for gifts, and I don't have any. The only ones I have from those times I showed you in my last episode. Now I'm gonna
Do yours first?
do mine first. I want that one first.
This
Okay,
one?
yeah.
Hold it up.
No, this one I want to hold. That one's heavy. You can hold that. This is something I stitched in 1999. Actually, these are in back order. But I did this when my son was having a bone marrow transplant. He was 18 years old, and I was there with him. And it says, every day holds the possibility of a miracle. And that he was with us for 18 months was pretty much a miracle. He did pass away from complications from the bone marrow transplant. Not from his leukemia, but an infection from his suppressed immune system. Anyway, I thought I hadn't done any samplers. I actually did one that was a tiny little freebie one that was a gift that I did and framed and gave away. But I think this counts as a sampler, don't you? I mean, there's an alphabet. There's another alphabet. That's a sampler, right? Teresa, KittenStitcher. You've asked for pictures of people with their samplers. Does this one qualify? I mean, it's a sampler. Actually, I think I stitched this out of a magazine. And I'm almost certain that this was by Carol Emmer, E-M-M-E-R, just because of the look of this child. I mean, she had a very distinctive way of designing, and I'm pretty sure of it. And like I said, I think it's from a magazine probably from 1997, 98, because I was pretty much only stitching out of magazines at that point. And I sure would love to know the name of it. It may have accidentally gotten thrown away with a lot of stuff at the hospital when my son passed away. They picked up some stuff and just tossed it. Not the actual stitching, but maybe the magazine. Anyway, Teresa, let me know, okay? My other finish, now you're gonna hold this up. I was going, gee, you know, I'd really love to do a Mirabilia. And I went, oh, I did a Mirabilia. Yeah, it's glare. I didn't know anything about museum quality glass or not using glass or whatever. I got this from magazine. And like I said, this is out of a little order. This is from 1998. When my son first got sick and I was in the hospital, I asked Doug to bring me some cross-stitch stuff. And he went looking and he found a bunch of magazines and he brought them to me in the hospital, and I was leafing through it. And this was in one of them. And it was like, oh, wow, this is great. This is wonderful. Yeah, you can put it down. But it called for something called Mill Hill beads, and I had no idea what that was, and some metallics, and I had never used metallics. I mean, what is that? I had just barely learned to cross stitch on linen. My first completed cross stitch on linen was this one, and I had started one without knowing it was different to cross stitch on linen. It was a little kit from Dimensions. And I was cross-stitching, oh, this is way too small. This is horrible. What is this fabric? Turns out I was stitching it 1/1 because I was used to Ada. And I made a real mess of it and ended up throwing it away eventually. But when my son went into remission, and he had an episode, had chemo, he's doing well. During that period, we went looking for these Mill Hill bead things, and we discovered something called a local needlework shop. And for us, it was called Needle Points West, and it was in El Segundo, I think, in California. Westchester. And
near the airport.
Yeah, near the airport. I think they're still there, but they're more of a needlepoint shop now. At the time, they were about halfsies, half needlepoint, half cross stitch. Anyways, we walked in. It was like, oh my gosh, what is this place? What are these things? And I bought a lot of things at that point and got my Mill Hill beads. And the funny thing is, once I stitched that piece as I was traveling for business throughout Europe. I was supposed to be gone for 1 week. I was gone for what, close to 6? And yeah, it's crying my eyeballs out. I was away from my family, away from my son who had just gotten out of the hospital, and so got a lot of tears in that cross stitch, but I did complete it. And I put the beads in, and I don't like the beads in this. So I took the beads out and I cross stitched in where the beads were with floss, and because it looked weird. You know, the beads were outsized. Now maybe it had to do with the size of fabric I had versus what was called for. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure what I had was Charles Craft fabric. Same with the last design too. I didn't understand there were other types of fabric to have. So I went to that local needlework shop, and I bought a couple Mirabilia and some other things. One of which I never started. I think it's called Rose of Sharon. It was the first Mirabilia, and the other one was one I'm going to be showing you in a few minutes. But from that venture at the needlework shop, we thought, oh, this is great. People have these all over the place, and we went looking, and even then, when there were more of them, people didn't have them all over the place. And I thought, well, they're going to be just like me. They're going to be looking and thinking that the only thing that's available is what's at Michael's and or other craft stores. I think even some of our larger stores carried some cross stitch back then. And we had been discussing doing something on the internet since we both worked in computer software. Doug is a product developer, a software developer, and I worked in the legal department as a contract manager and negotiator. And we thought, well, okay, so maybe we'll do a needlework shop. And my son got ill again, and we were in the hospital, and Doug was coming back and forth. He said, are you still interested in doing that? And I said, sure. He said, when would you like to have it available? And I said, well, in about 6 months. The next week he came in, he said, well, I have a functional store for you that will hold more than 10,000 items. I said, okay. He says, now what do you want it to look like? I said, I don't know, what do you mean, what do I want it to look like? He said, well, you know, you should have a theme or something. I said, well, I like Regency. And so he went off and he created the front page. He started with the front page. And in a Regency style, using some items from a really, really old magazine. I used to collect old magazines.
Yeah,
You want to show?
I assembled the pictures, yeah.
Yeah, he assembled the
They weren't
pictures
from a
and he did
magazine.
some.
But, okay.
Well, it was originally from an English fashion magazine.
Okay, if you ever saw this site.
Yeah, if you were shopping back in the late, 1990 through 2005, you might have seen our store.
This is on Wayback Machine. We don't have it up anymore.
It was called a Cross Stitch Companion, but the website name was Vades, V-A-D-E-S, and people just called us Vades, and they thought that was our last name. And the word, we took Vades because of two things. It was Vicki and Doug Designs, and then Doug also liked the idea of what?
5 letters.
No, the visual arts designs.
Visual art designs, yeah.
And after he did the front page, I said, well, can you do some Jane Austen pages behind it? And so he did. We found some public domain images from some old Jane Austen books. And he put those in, and then he created the buttons and everything, and gave it a pretty unique look at that time. And for a lot of years, we were a fairly big internet store. I almost closed it when my son passed away. Not that we had ever really fully opened it, but I realized I needed something to occupy me so I wouldn't just sit there and grieve. And boy, did it occupy us. I think some people thought there was like this little horde of, army of people that were working on stuff. But in actuality, it was Doug and me. At first, we both had full-time jobs, and we did this in our spare time. And I eventually quit my job because they kept sending me away on travel, and I had said I didn't want to travel. I wanted to stay home with my daughters. And they sent me out on one too many trips, and I ended up quitting. So I was full-time, and Doug was helping part-time. And to say we were occupied is putting it mildly. Let's see. So you did that. How many things did we carry eventually in that store?
We had over 20,000 items in the store. Pretty much everything from Hoffman, Zweigert, Witchholt, some Nordenkraft, and
Leisure
some Yarn
Arts.
Tree, I think, and
Yarn Tree.
and Leisure Arts, all those suppliers.
Notion Marketing.
Notion Marketing, yeah.
And then people like Gentle Arts and Weeks Dye Works. And,
Yeah.
I mean, just about anybody who would let you sell their items on the internet. Now, at that time, places like Rainbow Gallery wouldn't do that. You had to have a storefront, or you couldn't sell their products.
Yeah.
So that actually made me, well, I already had a desire to have a store, but Los Angeles was too expensive. So we thought later we'd move and open a store, but we'll get into that at a different time. Anyway, I've talked before that I had hand infections that developed, and I'll show you what I was working on when it started. Because boy, I'll use the back of this thing. This is The Kiss by Mirabilia. And this was the second chart I bought at that local needlework store. And I had seen the model, and I was like, oh, I'm going to stitch that. What I didn't realize at the time was that they apparently didn't have the fabric in a 32 count, so they sold me it in a 28. And I'm not sure if it's going to fit on it. I'm going to have to figure it out before I decide if I'm going to restart this or not. On this, I mean, I can always do it myself.
You probably have it upstairs.
Well, even if I don't, there's so many, different people who do linens. I could find a kind of an ash rose color, but it's almost full covered, so I don't need it to be mottled, just a solid color. Anyway, I had bought a few things, and I showed you the Spring Queen last time that had the threads ended on the front, but I had bought a couple other things too. Now this was something that I had, let me get that piece of paper, had kitted up to do, and was so disappointed I couldn't, that when I saw it for sale on eBay, I went ahead and bought it. And this is lavender and lace, and I don't remember the name of it. But it's very pretty. The faces are 2/2. If I were to stitch this with the stuff I have kitted up today, I would take a stab at 1/1 on it. But it's nice to have it, even if I redo it. One of my daughters will want it for sure. The other thing that I bought, because I was so disappointed about the Kiss, I started stitching it, and it's horrible. It really is the first project that I did on linen, where I was trying to do over 2 stitching, and I missed, and it'd go over 1. I didn't show you that too closely. And then later, when I had the finger infections, I was trying all sorts of things, and I was using a ton of thimbles. I mean, I bought just about every thimble that you could buy at the time. I just thimbled out, trying to stitch with a bunch of thimbles, and my tension went off. And at one point, I was like ripping these things through there. Anyway, I did find this on eBay, and so I bought it. But I said, I'm not going to get disappointed by this. I'm going to make sure I get it. Now, this one's over 32. And it has all the beads and all the metallics. And it's just lovely. I'm pleased to have it. We haven't framed it because those other 2 pieces that I showed you, the sampler and the, I forget what it's called, Easter basket or whatever it is by Mirabilia. She released it as a chart later. It are the only 2 frame pieces I have of my own work. I wanted to learn framing. He was inspired. Oh, you know who we forgot to mention? Another of our distributors was Serendipity Designs.
Yeah.
And we talked to them a lot about digital things at that time too. And
in fact, this was the cross stitch chart I learned on, although it's now officially my oldest whip because it's still never finished. It was this. That company no longer exists. Okay, and I could probably finish it in a day if I ever choose to finish it, but I don't know. It's got backstitching and stuff, and I didn't finish it. I put it aside. I did do some bookmarks I gave to the girls, and I also charted some stuff early on. This is the one I charted and stitched. I charted 2 similar patterns for our son and for Vicky. So this is Kyle, not Kyle, stitching with sound or whatever, but just Kyle from South Park. And Vicky has a Cartman somewhere, and David had, I have Kenny that I might finish.
Yeah, we'll have to find him.
I know where it is. It's in my stash.
I've lost my notes.
Okay.
Oh well. We'll wing it now. I was talking about my hands and how they were sore. And I tried all sorts of stuff, like I said, with thimbles. And I actually did some stitching in 2004 with thimbles and Q-snaps and frames and stuff. It was very difficult. And about 2006, 2007, was once we moved to Austin, I had an ingrown thumbnail. And in getting that repaired, I had to have surgery, we discovered what the issue was. I have a slight nickel allergy. Not extreme. I mean, I can wear, well, that's gold. I can wear silver on my hands, I can wear silver on my neck, but the moment it's like into pierced ears or poked into my finger, I have problems. And that's what was causing the infections. So I went, okay, no nickel. So what sorts of needles don't have nickel? And at the time I had 2 choices, really. They were both by John James, and one was a gold coated and one was a platinum coated. And this was cheaper and this was really expensive. And these are still available, but the platinum ones aren't. But if you find them, and you can still get them directly from John James, they look more like this. Now, a lot of people are saying that they've been discontinued. When I contacted John James recently, because I wanted to know, which ones didn't have nickel, I asked them specifically about the platinum. I said, are they really discontinued? I'd like them in a tapestry needle. And their response back was that that's the only type of platinum needles that they still make, are the tapestry ones. And I thought, okay, that's not discontinued, but they're selling them directly. And I asked them about the gold ones, and they said they kind of hedged around about it. So I don't know if the gold may have some sterling silver in it. They do that to harden gold, and so that might be the case. If so, it's so slight it doesn't bother me, but for other people who have nickel allergies, it might. Generally, the inside of a needle is either a high carbon steel or a stainless steel. Stainless steel might have nickel in it. High carbon does not, if it's made properly. So they were those. The other thing I've discovered recently, it's much less expensive, are the gold-plated needles by DMC. Now, a lot of people don't like either of these brands of needles. And there may be plenty of great needles available for people who don't have nickel allergies, but almost every other needle has a nickel plating on the top, and that's what gives it that smooth, silky feel. Now this one specifically says that it's nickel-free, and it's gold-plated steel, and 22 karat gold. Now, what I found...
Well, isn't it gold-plated stainless steel?
Well, it says gold-plated steel, but yeah, it's well, this is an unusual set. Usually what I get is a set of 24 or a set of 26, and this is a hybrid. It's got 2 24s and 2 26, and it actually has different wording on it.
Okay.
But it's I'm not allergic to it. And it's much cheaper. I'll tell you what though, don't buy it on Amazon. I made the mistake of doing that and it was like $6 with free shipping, Prime. Okay, great, I'll buy it and try it. Then I went to 123 Stitch and it was under $3. So I could have bought it at 123 Stitch, paid the shipping, and still got it cheaper than I would have got it on Amazon. So I tried the one, but when I went back to buy more in bulk, I bought them from 123 Stitch, or really any other stores cheaper than Amazon. Plus the shipping, and then you just can't just have needles travel by themselves. What I found about all of them, both of the gold, is the gold plating wears off really quickly. With the platinum, old style, new style, same needle, it takes longer for the plating to wear off, but it eventually does. I'm fine with the plating worn off because I'm just looking for the needle. Like I said, I'm sure it's not as smooth, it doesn't glide as well, but if I didn't have these, then I couldn't stitch. So,
As for me, I just use regular needles, and I have a multi-lifetime supply from leftovers from the store.
yeah, we had a lot of, we carried John James primarily. I think we carried the old DMC and the old Anchor. By the way, Anchor gold plated?
I have those.
No, that has nickel in it. Don't use that. But those broke a lot too. I haven't had that issue, but I haven't been using my needle threader. And I'm not a floss slicker. I'm a person who can fold it over and stick it through the eye of the needle. So I'm that type.
I'm a low-ran threader dude.
Yeah, so the eye of your needle will probably break from the repeated rubbing of the, yeah. But he has a lifetime
And
supply,
once
so
I've gone
that's
through
easier.
300 or 400, then I'll worry about it.
Yeah, my younger daughter has very acidic skin, and she'll use those nickel things, and within an hour the plating's off, and within a day the needle will be bent. Just, it's interesting. Platinum worked for her, but tough. The platinum are all mine. She can just bend needles and use yours. The other thing I did too, when I started designing and I was stitching in earnest, and I mean really stitching, my fingertips would get really sore. Not from the nickel, but just from the repeated beating up of a needle coming through. So I found these thimblets. This is probably the older one. I don't know if they're by Colonial anymore. They might be. But if you look for thimblet, it might be Low-Rand now. Or somebody. I put it on the finger that gets the needle on it. You know, it's sticky and it sticks on. And then the needle keeps hitting it and it keeps my fingertips from getting sore. I can't use it right now because I'm still on a steroid, which I hopefully will be off in a month, right? And then I can put it on. But while I'm on the steroid, my skin is really thin. And I'd probably take my skin off along with a thimblet. I lost my notes.
So what are you going to do?
Oh, plants. Okay, what are your plans, Dick?
Well, I haven't decided if I'm going to continue. For the time being, I'll probably continue on a little bit with the Country Cottage Needleworks until I start something new. But what I'm thinking of doing...
You mean the Little House Needleworks?
Yeah, Little House Needleworks, whatever. I do have a project that I started years ago. It's my fishing mouse, which I'll show another time, which I'm thinking about working on, or the since I've been thinking about 20 years of doing those planes, I might actually start those. The other thing I might do is I have a few scraps of fabric from the store.
Scraps.
That
It's all
I
relative.
might dye.
Okay, guys,
I might
it's
dye.
all relative.
Okay. Like, that's some summer khaki cast shell,
How many yards?
5 yards.
That's scraps.
I'm using some of this now. This is my coffee tea dye. This is cream Lugana. This is a small one. I don't know. There's only
That's a Brittany, a 28 count, right?
28 count Brittany. I don't know how many yards are on there.
Few.
4 or 5.
We have more if you need it.
This is Belfast. That's only about Belfast white. So that's 32 count. About 4 yards of that. Some of this I have some light sand cast shell.
Yeah, I don't even know if they make that
5
anymore.
yards. Another Brittany Lugana. This is my white Brittany instead of my cream. Plus, I have a box upstairs of some other scraps like that, not including the non-scrap material.
And
But so I'm thinking of testing some dyes on those, some RIT dyes, because I already know how to do the coffee tea dye from Priscilla and Chelsea. And then if I don't like it, I can throw it away and try it.
No,
some more.
you just do a darker color on
Whatever.
it.
I got plenty more.
You don't throw it away, okay? You don't throw it away. You can always paint on it too.
I might do that too.
I mean, if
Or
you don't
some of
like
the
how
others.
it came out when you dyed it, you can paint on it. You don't throw cross-stitch fabric away. And
I got spare.
it doesn't matter. You don't throw cross-stitch fabric away. Yeah, we do. We have a lot of fabric. When Leisure Arts decided to stop making cross-stitch kits and only do leaflets, they made a few yards of fabric available to the local needlework shops. And I spoke to my
This is
rep.
when they were selling to Janlin, just before they sold to Janlin.
Well, wait a second. We didn't know that at the time. I talked to my rep and I said, gee, I wish I could buy more of this. And she said, oh, let me get you a list. And she showed up with this huge list of stuff. And it was not just their fabric, it was their lace and just all the components except for floss that went into their kits. And I kind of went through and cherry picked their fabric. And I got almost all of their linen and some of their Aida and a bunch of stuff. And I was able to order it at a very low price. And we bought it. And in the midst of that purchase, my rep heard from the president of their company that they had been planning on selling the kit business to Janlin. And I had cherry picked all the fabric. But you know, they still had the designs.
We
and
sold it for
everything.
years on the store.
Yeah, we sold it for years on the store. We had well over 6,000 yards, and we've sold
Most of it.
most of it. I mean, most of it.
A lot of it.
A lot of it. But we still have a lot. And that's okay. That's going to give him the opportunity to hand dye stuff for me
Forever.
forever. And we bought a bunch of RIT dye last fall. Last fall? No, last.
Fall,
Last winter, spring.
So it's a couple months ago.
It was after we started watching Flosstube, so maybe it was in late winter of 2018. And
Yeah, this is Enable versus.
no,
Inspire?
no, we'll do that another time. We're running along here. We're almost
Okay.
almost at an hour. I
Okay.
mean, we can chat for a long time, but we won't do any more. My plans, because I've lost my notes. I want to finish Coffee Quaker, and I want to finish it this month, if I can. If I can't, that's cool. I'll finish it next month. Then I've got to choose a design to stitch, and for the first time in my life, I've got to choose it based on how it's stitched and not just how I like it. I have a bunch of old whips where, you know, color changes are constant, you know, and that's not going to work well for me right now. I need something where I put a thread in and can pretty much use that thread, at least for another short while, because the act of threading and unthreading is a little more difficult than stitching. And the worst thing is frogging, so I've got to stop making mistakes. Or like I did with Coffee Quaker, I said, improvement, and just keep going. So those are my plans with regards to actual cross stitch, and hopefully cross stitching on some hand dyed fabric by Doug, the guy. You know, should be hand dyed by the guy, right? Anyways, he's not going to sell it. He's just doing it for me. He's a fabric dyer with an audience of 2. And but my other plan is to start designing again. And I stumbled on that plan this week when I realized that sitting in my computer chair, which is a really nice ergonomic, relax the back chair, that I'm can stay pretty comfortable for about an hour or so. And that's the only place where I can spend an hour without cramping up like crazy. You know, it's like if I go to stretch this way, I cramp the abdomen. If I go to stretch this way, the back goes to spasm. But for some reason, sitting in that chair, I'm pretty good for about an hour. And so that's good. That's where my design software is. Although I also have it on my laptop, which is sitting right over there, notebook. But we haven't been able to figure out how to get me comfortable sitting here for that amount of time. Anyways, so I'm going to start designing, and it may be for myself or it may be for a future release. I don't know. We'll see when it happens. Anyway,
Well
I
done.
think we're done. Yeah. So it's been nice visiting with you and introducing Doug. And
That's it.
until we see you next time for episode 5.
Bye.
Have fun stitching.
Have fun stitching.